I finally made it on. I was planning on going on at 11 today, got a little caught up. It's the thumbnails. It's the YouTube thumbnails that always I'm like, oh yeah, I need to create a thumbnail really quickly. And then that takes me way longer than I planned, but I digress. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I am Mackenzie Kappa. I love to talk all things planning and wellness and women. And today we are talking about both of those things combined because we are talking about planning our lives according to our monthly cycles. So, this was something that I did not become really aware of until maybe about 3 years ago when I was actually listening to a Jenna Kutcher podcast, and she had on an author, Kate Northrup, one of the two. She wrote the book Do Less, and she talked about how much our brains change throughout the course of the month. Well, we all know that our bodies change throughout the course of the month. We have a 28-day cycle, unlike men who have a 24-hour cycle for their hormones. We change every single day. Not one single day in our month is the same as any other day in the month. And this got me really thinking because, hello, Carrie. It's so good to see you. So I realized, like, where has this information been all my life? I had taken classes, like, after I had my first son, really understanding how my body changed through the course of the month because I didn't even feel like I'd been very well educated about that when I was younger. We kind of just get told, like, you're going to PMS probably, you're going to have your period, it's going to be over, and that's what it is. But I don't think that typically girls and women are getting the information of, like, no, it is so much more complicated than that. And your brain chemistry actually changes up to 20% over the course of the month. And your brain is geared for different things in each of those different phases. You have 4 distinct phases to your cycle, and your energy levels are different through all of those phases. Your brain is ready and geared to do different things in all of those phases. And when you can actually key into that and pay attention to that, it can be a game changer for how you are planning and running your life. I know it certainly has for me, even when I can't plan exactly the way that I want to, just because life doesn't always operate like that. But when I can have that awareness of what I'm trying to get done and how much I'm trying to get done and what my brain is geared for, it does just help me to have a little bit more grace with myself as I'm moving through some of those more difficult weeks. So let's kind of jump into, well, what are these 4 phases? Let's talk about them in terms of the seasons of the year, because I think that's a really easy way to understand what they are. And we're actually not going to start with menstruation as they often do. They often say that's like the beginning of your cycle and all of the cycle tracking apps and all that kind of thing. But I actually want to start us with spring because that's when it starts getting good again, right? So let's think of spring as our follicular phase. It's when your body has just got done menstruating and you're starting to feel a little bit more alive again. Your energy levels are starting to ramp up and you're starting to kind of feel like, okay, I can, like, get some stuff done again. I'm a capable person. I don't feel like I'm dead to the world. I don't mind, like, being around people again. It's that phase when things are starting to bloom. You're having new ideas. And that is really what your brain is the most geared toward during that stage. It is starting to fire with all the ideas and all the vision and all the planning of what you can be doing the rest of the month. So this phase generally lasts, I want to make sure I check my notes so I'm telling you the right thing, 7 to 10 days. So the follicular phase and the luteal phase are our longest phases that we have throughout the month. But in that phase, it's 7 to 10-ish days, and it's a great time to start planning, to really get in there and do some really intensive brainstorming sessions. Because I know for me, there come times in the month where I'm trying to do planning and it just feels like, did someone shut my brain off? Like, it's just not clicking. I cannot think. It's your favorite phase, Carrie. Yeah, it is. It is like the most where you're like starting to feel alive again and capable and you can like be productive. And that's so nice to feel that way again. And so it is that phase where your brain is going to be switched on to be able to do the planning and come up with the ideas. Like, for my personal business, obviously I'm doing podcasts and YouTube and Instagram and and I also do voiceover work, but trying to figure out all the ideas for all of that content and when all of that is going to come out and how I'm going to get all of that done. Those ideas, hi Bonnie, those ideas come in so much more in that follicular phase for me. The planning just comes easier. And so that's a really good time to bulk plan as much as you can for the entire month. So you're not trying to do it every single week when maybe your brain isn't as geared for it. Try to do as much of that as you can during that follicular phase. Even things like planning out your meals for the whole month or planning how you're going to get your chores done around your house for the whole month. Whatever it is, when you do it in that follicular phase, it just comes easier. It's also kind of, as I mentioned, a good time to start bulk getting things done. This we're going to talk about in these next couple of phases as well. But I think through these 3 phases preceding your menstrual phase, it's so great to be getting a lot of that bulk work done so that you can take a little bit of a break during the winter menstrual phase. So I think that's really helpful. So that's kind of what you're geared for during that follicular phase. And then you come into ovulation, which is only 3 or 4 days, which is sort of a crime, but that is when you are the most switched on for communication and socializing and working together and collaborating with people. So if you're volunteering on a project or you have a project at work or you want to do something with your family or have people over or plan a birthday party or, whatever, this is the time for that. Go out with your friends to get coffee, have a dinner where you invite a bunch of couples over or whatever it is. This is the time when you are the most eager to socialize. You literally have the most words that you are capable of saying, and you can relate that into your work life if you work or you volunteer or whatever, anything that requires more communication. So sending emails, writing emails, if you write blog posts, if you have a newsletter, if you need to record anything, video or audio, this is the time when your words are going to come the most easily. You're going to be the most communicative. So for me and my business, that means trying to bulk record as many things as I can, record as many podcasts, record as many YouTube videos, get as many reels and shorts done and all that kind of thing, because my brain is switched on to do it. So it comes easier, it feels less burdensome. And when you are doing the things that your brain is geared for, you're able to do them more quickly and more efficiently. So doing those things during that ovulation phase, which is summer, you've got the most energy, you can really pack a lot into your days, you can fit a ton in, and you're going to have the energy to be able to do a lot of that. Then we're coming into the luteal phase, which is like fall. And this is your longest phase. So it can last up to 14 days. It is the biggest chunk out of the month, which is unfortunate because the end of it is where we like to talk about PMS. But the first part, because it's like a slow decline of your hormones until you bottom out at menstruation. So the first part, you actually still do have a fair bit of energy. And what you're geared toward in the luteal phase, which I think Carrie was saying that the follicular phase is your favorite, the beginning of my luteal phase might be my favorite because I get so much done. Like I am in production mode. It is like batten down the hatches, finish up everything that I've started throughout the month. I just start popping stuff off. I can pack my days at the beginning of my luteal phase with so many projects that I'm getting finished. And so any of those podcast recordings that I've done and videos I've done, this is where I get in and like do the editing, get them scheduled, get everything, like all the little pieces in place. It's a great time for dealing with all the little logistics. It's a time when I can get into the back end of my website and do anything that I need to do back there. It's like when I put the finishing touches on everything that needs to be published. So all that production of the content that I've been doing through those first 2 weeks, the spring and summer phases and the fall phases, it's a great time for me to get things scheduled out, get things wrapped up, and get as many projects completed as I possibly can. So this is kind of like the culmination of my bulk work time. It's also a great time to wrap up any big projects around the house, anything that I've maybe been letting linger, anything like that that I'm not going to want to deal with in the next week of my cycle. which we'll get to in a second. But getting all of that stuff done, even like prepping meals in advance so that things are a little bit easier during the menstruation phase. Any of those things that you can do to free up your time a little bit and like feel like you got stuff done, the luteal phase is the time to get stuff done. And that starts to wane. Like you got to pack it as much as you can into the first part because it's going to start to, get less and less and less as you get to your menstrual phase, which is a time when your body is naturally needing more rest. Your brain is more reflective, you're more insular, you're not wanting to be around people as much. You're really wanting to just kind of like reflect and be with yourself and have some space and be in like sort of a healing mode for yourself. And the energy is Zippo, right? If we're paying attention to this, we really don't have the same capacity, the same bandwidth as we do during other phases of our cycle. We just literally, physically, and mentally cannot do as much as we do during those other phases. So as we start paying attention to, these broad generalizations of what our bodies do during each phase of our cycle, but also our very personal observations. Like if you really start taking the time to note these things, whether it's in an app or in a journal or some other way, and paying attention to what your body does on each of the different days of your cycle throughout all the different phases throughout the entire time, you're going to start to notice patterns for yourself. Like I know day 23, day 24, I just need to like let my family know, stand back, okay? I may not make the most sense, and I may be a little on edge. Like, let's plan for that. Let's plan that everybody just knows, right? That's a good one to just know and be able to plan about. But as you start to pay attention to these different things about how you're feeling throughout all of the different weeks of your cycle, you are going to be able to plan the things in your life that you need to do during each of those weeks that make the most sense and allow you to have the rest that you're going to need, you're going to truly require during your menstrual phase. There's really only so much that you can get done, and your body is really craving that rest so that it can ramp back up and do what it needs to do through the next 3 weeks when you can be super productive. So for me, that looks like scheduling a lot more white space into my day, knowing that a lot of the tasks that I normally do are probably going to take me a little bit longer. I may have other physical symptoms that I am having to deal with, like migraines or cramps or whatever it is, that are going to take away from what I would normally be doing with my work. And so I need to account for that in the amount that I am trying to fill my week with. It's not a good week for me to try to be, having a party or doing something like that. This is a week when I really need to just be able to enjoy the things that I need to enjoy, like have a hobby to be able to slow down and take more time with the things that I'm doing and not try to pack my schedule out from dusk till dawn, give myself a little bit more breathing room to be able to work through what I need to work through. And sometimes that's not possible, like I kind of said at the beginning. Sometimes we just have life requirements that require us to do a lot of things during that phase, and there's really not a whole lot we can do about it. But what we do have control over, what we can change, I think that we really should try to take those things into account, because otherwise it just sets us up for frustration and annoyance and more exhaustion. So the more that we are able to kind of clue into what our bodies are doing, the better able we are going to be to deal with those things. So I do have a couple of resources that I want to mention for you guys, that if you're like, this is super interesting to me, where do I learn more? Well, I have a whole extended long podcast episode about this. My podcast is called Live Well Anyway. You can find episode 70, which is actually from late last spring, I think. Let me pull it up and make sure I'm giving you the right. I'm sure it's episode 70. Episode 70 from last February. So February 2022, I did an episode called Handling Your Cycle Like a Grown Woman. So you can go and listen to that and find a ton more information over there. There's also this fabulous book, which you can see I have all tabbed and everything. It is called In the Flow by Alyssa Vitti. I might be pronouncing her name wrong, and if I am, I'm so sorry. Maybe it's Alyssa Vitti, and I just have my eyes mixed up. But this is a great book. I think some of it is filled with opinion. I will say that there is a lot of opinion, especially kind of in the first chapters. But if you can kind of wade through all of that and get to the heart of the science that she talks about regarding women's bodies, it's a game changer. It is so insightful, really amazing. That book that I mentioned by Kate Northrup, which is Do Less, that is an excellent book. Really goes into the cycles and helps with all that. Definitely need to have your girls listen. Your oldest is 20 and gets so frustrated at certain times when she can't get enough done. Well, there are literally times when we just can't. We just can't. And if we account for that, if we go into our cycle, into that week, knowing that, it is such a game changer because we can give ourselves that break, knowing like it's okay. This is the way my body is. And if I don't honor it, I'm just going to cause more frustration for myself. But guess what? I can do more next week and the week after that and the week after that. So it's going to be okay. And I think the more that we learn about this, the other resource that I want to make sure to mention, because I think if this book, which I listened to this book and I had the hard copy so I could tab it and I could make the notes that I needed to, but it is robust. It is packed with a lot of information. And if you need something that's just like going to meet you right where you are every day and it's a little bit simpler, there is a fantastic app called the Moody Month app. It's a little like turquoisey, tealy app symbol. I will link to it below in the description. But that app, you actually go in and you put in your cycle, and then every day of your cycle, it will tell you you're on day 23. This is what your hormones are doing today, and this is probably what you feel like today. What? Okay, thank you. It tells you exactly what your body is doing, how your brain is working, what you're geared toward, and to have that little nugget of information to then be able to walk into the rest of your day and be like, oh, this makes sense. It makes sense that I feel this way. I just feel like it's a game changer for us being able to plan our days and figuring out how much we can fit in and what our brains are going to be capable of and what we might get frustrated by. And so having that, they even have things about, they can tell you what food is going to work for best parts of your cycle. They have a whole workout thing. They have a 28-day yoga routine where they will give you the workout for that day of your cycle, that whatever phase you are particularly in, so that you're not trying to push your body to do like an ovulation workout, which is like more hard hitting when you're menstruating. You know, the menstrual ones I actually did last week. They were amazing. It was like all relaxation. Some of them you just like laid there with a warm pillow over your eyes. Like it was so good. I was like, this is exactly what I needed. They see me, they get me, because that's what our bodies are geared for during all of those different phases. And so when you find those resources that get how women's bodies work and help us to be aware of those things that then allow us to plan our time better and get less frustrated, boom, game changer. So I say make all the notes that you need to on your planner about what phase you are in and what your brain is geared toward. Continuously remind yourself of that. Use something like the Moody Month app so that it tells you to. You can even go in there and log different symptoms that you have. It will ask you how your energy is and that kind of thing. And then the next month, it'll say, this is how you felt last month. This is the kind of energy you had. This is the stress level you had. Like, how does that compare to where you are right now? Which I think is also such a helpful tool for us to pay attention to our bodies and the way that they're working and comparing them from month to month. Because as we ourselves start to recognize our own individual patterns of our cycles, it is so empowering to feel like you really understand your body and you can communicate that to a doctor or a therapist, a counselor, whatever, and be able to say, well, this is how I'm feeling right now, but this also could account for part of that. So that is how I take into account my cycle with my planning. I really try to bulk work as many things as I can, do a lot of those communicative tasks during my ovulation period, do a lot of the like hard hitting productivity, wrap things up during the first part of my luteal phase, and then try to allow for myself to have more white space, longer periods of time to get tasks done during menstruation, and allow for rest as much as possible. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you go listen to the podcast episode of Live Well Anyway. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. Or if you have any ideas for future videos that you would like me to do about any of these topics, planning, women's health, wellness stuff, I would love to be able to show more of what you guys are interested in. So, all right. That's it for today's video. I believe I will be back on Friday around the same time, so be looking back here for me then. Until then, ladies, go be bold and gracious. Bye.